Veteran buys a sick horse at auction. What happens next will amaze you. The sharp crack of the auctioneer's gavel echoes through the weathered barn, mingling with the howl of wind sweeping through the oak ridge forest. Dim light filters through the slatted wood, illuminating the gaunt silhouette of a horse, its eyes blazing like an unquenchable flame. The crowd's murmurs fall into an ominous silence. In the heart of Oak Ridge, where past and present intertwine like forgotten trails, an ancient secret awaits its awakening. John Harper, a war-scarred veteran bearing invisible wounds, stands among the crowd at an auction, his gaze heavy with pain and a flicker of fragile hope. Before him is Storm, a noble horse cast aside by the world, its frame wasted, yet its eyes defiant, challenging fate itself. As light grazes the horse's shoulder, a double spiral mark emerges, a legendary emblem of the Amaze tribe, etched in the secret notebook of his father, a master trainer whispering of horses that unlocked the buried realms of earth and sky. With his last coins, John stakes everything to save Storm, unaware that this choice will thrust him into a battle against the shadows of history, where dangerous secrets and fierce loyalty will be tested. Is Storm merely a horse, or the key to a legacy that could reshape Oak Ridge forever? Step into this tale. Let curiosity guide you, and don't forget to share your thoughts and where you're watching from. The curtain of night has risen. Let it begin. The sharp crack of the auctioneer's gavel echoed through the weathered barn at the edge of Oak Ridge, cutting through the howl of wind sweeping across the surrounding forest. Dust motes swirled in slanted beams of light, piercing the wooden slats, casting shadows over a crowd of weathered farmers and townsfolk. Their murmurs buzzed a mix of skepticism and idle gossip as the auctioneer's voice boomed. Lot 47 male, thoroughbred 5 years old, health issues, failed training. Bidding starts at 100. John Harper stood at the back, hands shoved into his faded jacket, gray eyes shadowed with the weight of battles fought and comrades lost. At 45, the former Special Forces operative felt like a stranger in Oak Ridge. The town hollowed out by the shuttered mine and fading hope. He hadn't meant to come, but Sheriff Carter, a friend of his late father, had nudged him. "Get out of that farmhouse," John Carter had said, his voice gruff but kind. Now here he was, watching livestock he had no business bidding on. The crowd parted as handlers dragged the next lot forward. A gaunt thoroughbred ribs stark against a dull chestnut coat, head bowed under an invisible burden. The horse's legs quivered faintly, a sign of neglect or something deeper. Flies buzzed around its ears, ignored, returned twice. Mr. Anderson, the auctioneer, muttered, scratching his beard. Started training, didn't finish. "Do I hear $75? Silence answered. Whispers rippled. Worthless. Sick? Waste. Oh. John's gaze lingered, drawn by an instinct he couldn't name. The horse raised its head, amber eyes meeting his, fierce, like a soldier, staring down death. It stirred a memory. Men he'd failed to save, faces he couldn't forget. He stepped closer, ignoring curious glances, and crouched by the pen. As a handler adjusted the halter, sunlight fell across the horse's shoulder, revealing a faint mark, a double spiral etched like a scar beneath the matted fur. John's breath caught. He pulled Henry's worn leather notebook from his jacket, flipping to a page with his father's precise sketch A spiral identical, beside notes about Amaze horses. A tribal line said to find hidden places. Caves, mines, sacred grounds. Henry Oakridge's legendary trainer had believed in them stories John once dismissed as fanciful. Now doubt and wonder clashed in his chest. The auctioneer's voice cut through $50. Anyone. Come on, this horse needs a home. The crowd's silence grew heavy. John's jaw tightened. Henry's words echoing. See what others don't. John? He thought of the empty days, the guilt of surviving when others didn't. This horse, marked by a symbol his father revered, felt like a challenge, a chance to be more than a shadow. $50. He called, voice steady, loud enough to turn heads. A ripple of surprise spread. Anderson squinted. Harper, this one's trouble, vet bills, no training. You know better. John held his gaze. $50. He pulled a crumpled wad of bills and coins from his pocket. $237.04, every cent of his veteran's stipend. Clara would question it, but those eyes that Mark held him fast. Anderson scanned for other bids. None came. Going once, twice. Sold to John Harper for $50. The gavel cracked, sealing the deal amid murmurs of disbelief. John approached the pen. Carter's voice nearby. Hell of a choice. John Hope. You know what you're doing. John didn't respond, his focus on the horse Storm. The paperwork would call him. He extended a hand through the wire fence, slow and steady. Easy, boy, he whispered. Storm watched wary, but still, as if measuring him, John's fingers brushed the spiral mark rough under his touch. A chill ran through him, not from the autumn air, but from a sense of stepping into something vast. Beyond the barn, a sleek black car idled on the road, its driver unseen watching. John didn't notice his mind on Storm. The notebook and a choice that felt like fate. John trudged along the dirt path to the farmhouse. Storm's hooves scraping behind him in a slow, weary cadence that mirrored the ache in his bones. The late afternoon sun dipped low, casting golden streaks across Oak Ridge's rolling fields. But the chill bit through his jacket. Clara waited on the porch. Arms crossed her dark hair, pulled tight in a bun. Her nurse's eyes flicked from John to the skeletal horse trailing him, her lips parting in disbelief. That's what you spent our savings on, she asked, her voice sharp but laced with worry. John tethered Storm to a post by the barn, avoiding her gaze. $50. He muttered, patting the horse's neck, the gesture more for himself than Storm. He's got something, Clara. She stepped closer, boots crunching on gravel, and studied Storm's protruding ribs, dull coat, and trembling legs. Something that'll cost us more than we have, she said softer now, her hand brushing his arm. We're scraping by, John. What's this about, really? He pulled out Henry's notebook, handing it to her. Look at his shoulder, he said, nodding toward Storm. Clara opened it, her brow furrowing as she found Henry's sketch, a double spiral beside notes about Amaze horses, trained to find hidden places, horses of the hidden paths. Henry had written, marked by the spiral bound by trust. Clara crouched beside Storm, brushing matted fur to reveal the mark, her breath caught. "You think this is one of them?" she asked, skepticism mixed with wonder. John shrugged, doubt gnawing at him. "I don't know, but Dad believed in them. If there's a chance." Clara closed the notebook, her gaze softening. Henry saw potential where others didn't. "If you see it in Storm, I'm with you. But we need a plan. Vet bills feed." "This isn't just faith." John nodded, gratitude mixing with guilt. She deserved better than a husband chasing dreams. But her belief steadied him. As dusk settled, he led Storm into the barn, its rafters creaking. He spread straw for a bed, watching Storm sniff the ground but not eat. The spiral mark seemed to pulse in the dim light. Or maybe it was his imagination, fueled by Henry's stories. Clara joined him, her presence a quiet anchor. "We're in this together," she said, her hand on his. Like always. John sat on a crate, notebook open, his father's words a map to an uncertain path. Could he revive a horse honor? Henry, be the man Clara needed. Storm snorted softly as if sensing his turmoil. And John looked into those amber eyes, fierce despite frailty. Beyond the barn, the black car's shadow lingered in his mind, a faint unease he couldn't shake. For now, he focused on the task ahead, the grasses, the signals, the spark of possibility. He'd made a choice, and whether fate or folly, he'd see it through one step at a time. Dawn broke over Oak Ridge mist, weaving through the fields like a living shroud. John Harper stepped out into the cold. His breath clouded in the air, the weight of Storm's frail condition pressing heavier than the chill. The horse stood in the barn, head low, ribs stark against his chestnut coat, the faint tremble in his legs, a constant reminder of the task ahead. John carried a bucket of water, Henry's leather notebook tucked under his arm, its pages a lifeline to a legacy he wasn't sure he could uphold. Clara's silhouette moved in the kitchen window, the scent of coffee drifting through the crisp morning, a small anchor in the uncertainty. John set the bucket by Storm's stall, studying the horse's dull eyes, and the double spiral mark on his shoulder, barely visible in the dim light. He opened the notebook, landing on a page titled Amaze Care. Henry's handwriting detailed a regimen for the tribe's sacred horses, a diet of 3 grasses, alfalfa for strength, timothy for balance, wild mint for the mind, mixed precisely 50%, 30%, 20%. Below sketches showed hand signals to awaken instinct. John traced the words, Henry's voice echoing. Trust the horse, and it will trust you. Doubt gnawed at him. Could he really bring Storm back? Or was he chasing a dead man's dream? Clara appeared at the barn door, a wool scarf around her neck, her eyes scanning Storm with clinical precision. He hasn't eaten, has he? She asked, stepping inside her boots soft on the straw. John shook his head, frustration tightening his jaw. Not enough. He's too weak. Clara crouched beside Storm, her hand gentle on his flank. He's not just weak. He's lost trust in people and himself. You'd know something about that. Her words stung, cutting through the silence he'd built since the war. John looked away, memories of fallen comrades flickering in his mind. The rumble of Sheriff Carter's patrol car broke the moment. He climbed out, a canvas bag slung over his shoulder, his weathered face set with purpose. Morning Harpers, he called, setting the bag down. Brought some oats, but if we're doing this Henry's way, we need those grasses. He peered at Storm, his eyes narrowing as he noticed the spiral mark. That's no ordinary brand. Reminds me of Henry's tales, those Amaze horses. Are you sure about this one? John showed him the notebook, pointing to the sketch. Carter's face shifted, recognition dawning. Well, I'll be. Henry used to talk about those horses, said they found things no man could. Carter's words carried weight. He'd known Henry trained under him before joining the sheriff's department. Amaze ways were strict, he added, running a hand over Storm's flank. Special diet signals. Got a lead on Alfalfa, Peterson's field. Timothy's by the creek, wild. Mint's, tougher. It's deep in the forest. John nodded, flipping to the notebook's care page, reading aloud. 3 grasses. Alfalfa, Timothy, wild, mint. 50%, 30%, 20%. Hand signals to awaken instinct. Carter clapped his shoulder. I can get alfalfa from my cousin's field. Rest'll be harder. Mint grows deep. You'll need help. Clara stepped forward, gloves in hand. I'll take the creek. For Timothy, she said, her tone firm. You too. Handle the forest. They set out as the mist lifted, Clara heading to the creek with a sack while John and Carter trekked into the forest. Pine needles cushioned their steps, the air sharp with the scent of earth. Carter pointed out patches of wild mint, its pungent leaves glinting in the dappled light. This stuff's rare. Now, he said, plucking a handful, Maui used it in rituals, not just for horses. John worked in silence, his mind churning. Could grass and gestures heal Storm, or was he risking everything for a fantasy? By noon, they'd gathered enough. Back at the barn, they measured the grasses on a rusty scale, following Henry's ratios. The mix smelled sharp alive, like the forest under moonlight. John spread it in a trough, offering it to Storm. The horse sniffed, then turned away, his eyes vacant. John's heart sank, but Carter grabbed his arm. Try the signals, he said. Pointing to the notebook, John studied the sketches. A raised palm, a slow circle, a pointed finger. Feeling foolish, he faced Storm and raised his palm. Storm Guide, he said, circling his hand, voice firm. Nothing happened. He tried again, slower, locking eyes with the horse. Storm's ears twitched and his head lifted, amber gaze meeting John's. Slowly, he stepped forward, nosing the trough, taking a small mouthful. Clara's hand found John's, her grip tight. With relief, Carter let out a low whistle. Hell, it worked. John held his breath, afraid to move. Storm made another bite, then another, the tremble in his legs easing faintly. The spiral mark caught the light, a quiet promise. Clara leaned against him, her voice soft. You're doing it, John. Like Henry would have. He wanted to believe her, but a flicker of movement caught his eye. A sleek black car idling on the road, closer than before, its driver unseen, then gone. Unease curled in his gut, but he pushed it down, focusing on Storm's steady chewing, the fragile hope growing in the barn. Tomorrow they'd try more, one bite at a time. The late afternoon sun dipped low over Oak Ridge, casting long shadows across the Harper farmhouse, as John Harper led Storm from the barn. The horse's chestnut coat showed faint glimmers of life after days of the Amaze grass blend. 50% alfalfa, 30% Timothy, 20% wild mint. The tremble in his legs had eased, and his amber eyes held a spark that stirred something in John's chest. He gripped the lead rope, Henry's notebook tucked in his jacket, its weight a constant reminder of the legacy he was chasing. Clara watched from the porch, a mug of coffee in hand, her smile cautious but bright. "He's coming along," she called, her voice carrying hope that John clung to, even as doubt whispered he wasn't ready for this. Sheriff Carter's words lingered. The grass was just the start. Storm needed exercise, trust, and time to awaken the instincts Henry's notes described. John wasn't sure he could deliver. Could he revive a horse tied to ancient Amaze rituals? Or was he setting himself up to fail like he had in the war, letting others down? He pushed the thought aside, leading Storm toward a trail, winding into the forest behind the farmhouse. "Let's see what you can do, boy," he murmured, giving the rope a gentle tug. The forest enveloped them, pine and oak, filtering sunlight into shifting patterns. John raised his palm, circling it as the notebook instructed Storm guide. He said Storm's ears flicked, and he moved forward, his gait uneven but deliberate. The trail twisted through underbrush, past jagged rocks, until it opened to a clearing John had never seen. His breath caught. Before them stood a rocky outcrop, half hidden by vines, its narrow entrance cloaked in shadow. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen presence. Storm snorted, pawing the ground, his eyes locked on the dark mouth. A forgotten mine or something older. John tied Storm to a tree and approached, brushing vines aside. Inside, faint glints sparkled in the gloom. Quartz or maybe silver. His pulse quickened. Henry's notes had spoken of Amaze horses, finding hidden places. But this was no story. Storm had led him here unprompted. He stepped back, mind racing. Was this a fluke, or proof of the horse's power? Storm whinnied, as if urging belief. John's fingers grazed the spiral mark on the horse's shoulder, its texture grounding him. "Good boy," he whispered, but the discovery's weight pressed in. If Storm could do this, what else lay ahead? Back at the farmhouse, Clara listened as John described the mine, her eyes wide. Silver. Just like that. She set her mug down, her practical side surfacing. "We should tell Carter. If it's real, it could help. Oak Ridge jobs money, the town's hurting." "John." He hesitated, fingers tightening around the notebook. "Not yet. Storm's not ready, and I don't know what this means. If word gets out." He trailed off, the black car from the auction flashing in his mind, an unease he couldn't name. Clara's gaze softened, but her voice held an edge. Henry trusted people. You can too. On that evening, a boy's voice cut through John's thoughts. As he mucked out the barn, Mr. Harper. "That's your horse, right?" John turned to see Liam Wilson, the 12-year-old neighbor, leaning over the fence, his sketchpad clutched tight. The kid had been quiet since a car accident, left him with sensory issues. His world a blur of overwhelming sounds and sights. John had noticed him sketching alone in the fields. "Yeah," John said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Name's Storm." Liam's eyes lit up. drawn to the horse grazing nearby. He's skinny, but awesome. Can I get closer? John nodded, cautious. Slow. Okay. He's still adjusting. Liam approached, hands steady despite his usual fidgeting. Storm sniffed his palm, unmoving, and Liam's face broke into a rare grin. He likes me. He pulled out his sketch pad, showing a rough drawing of Storm, the spiral mark prominent. I want to be an explorer. Find lost stuff, like in books. John's chest tightened, the boy's dream stirring his own buried hopes. Explorers need grit, he said. Want to help with Storm? Maybe walk him. Liam's nod was eager, but Clara called from the porch. John, dinner's ready, Liam. You want some? The boy shook his head, backing away. Gotta go, but I'll come back. He darted off, leaving John with a spark of an idea. If Storm could help a kid like Liam, maybe that was part of the point. Over dinner, Clara pulled a folder from her bag. I dug into the auction records, she said, voice low. Storm came from Equimed Labs, a facility training horses for search and rescue. They went bankrupt, auctioned their stock. There's a note. Subject administered experimental stimulants to enhance navigation. Resulted in tremors deemed unfit. That's why he was sold off. John's jaw clenched, anger surging. At the thought of Storm drugged his potential. Buried. What stimulants, he asked. Clara shook her head. No details. But they hurt him, John. He opened the notebook, landing on a page about Amaze rituals. Trust binds horse and guide. He thought of Liam's grin, how Storm had steadied the boy's chaotic world, and his own doubts, the guilt of surviving. The black car lingered in his mind, spotted again that afternoon, closer to the farm. For now he focused on Storm's steady breaths in the barn, Liam's sketch, and the mind's promise. Tomorrow they'd push further, one step closer to the spiral's truth. The forest clearing behind the Harper farmhouse glowed with morning light, dew sparkling on the grass, as John Harper adjusted Storm's halter. The horse's chestnut coat shimmered faintly, his frame less gaunt. After weeks of the Amaze grass blend, 50% alfalfa, 30% Timothy, 20% wild mint. His amber eyes tracked John's movements, the double spiral mark on his shoulder, a reminder of the mine he'd uncovered. John gripped the lead rope, Henry's notebook in his jacket, its promises of hidden paths, both thrilling and heavy. Clara stood at the clearing's edge, her scarf catching the breeze, her eyes cautious but warm. Take it easy, she called, her tone firm. John had set up a web of logs and branches in the clearing, a maze to test Storm's instincts. Liam Wilson, the 12-year-old neighbor, stood nearby, clutching his sketchpad, his lanky frame buzzing with nervous energy. Since meeting Storm, Liam's sensory issues, triggered by a past accident, had eased in the horse's presence. We doing the maze? Mr. Harper, he asked, voice eager. John nodded, handing Liam a rope. Walk with us, keep it loose, stay steady, Storm will lead. John raised his palm, circling it. As Henry's notebook directed Storm Guide, he said. Storm's ears flicked, and he stepped forward, Liam at his side, the boy's steps hesitant but determined. The maze wove through trees, its twists challenging focus. Liam's breathing hitched as the forest's sounds, rustling leaves, a distant crow rest in John's voice. Stayed calm. Look at Storm, Liam. The horse navigated turns with eerie precision, pausing at forks as if sensing the path. At the maze's end, a stone marked with a chalk spiral sat in the grass. Storm stopped beside it, snorting softly. Liam's face lit up. "We did it!" He dropped the rope, wrapping his arms around Storm's neck, the horse standing steady. John's chest warmed, pride flaring for both. As they walked back, Liam's chatter spilled out. "I want to find stuff like Storm did with that mine." Treasures. John's smile wavered, the mine's secret heavy explorer's train. Hard. "Stick with Storm, we'll see." Liam nodded, sketching the maze, his pencil flying. A small figure appeared at the fence. Mia Wilson, Liam's 10-year-old cousin. Her braid, swinging, clutching a notebook, her eyes wide and wary, fixed on Storm. Mia had been quiet since her parents' divorce, her world shrinking under anxiety. "Mr. Harper," she said, voice a whisper, "is that Liam's horse?" John nodded, wiping his hands. "This is Storm. Want to meet him." Mia hesitated, then stepped forward, her notebook pressed to her chest. John guided her to the barn, moving slowly. "He's gentle," he said, offering her oats. "Hold it out." Mia's hand trembled, her eyes darting, but she extended the oats. Storm sniffed, then nibbled his breath, brushing her palm. Her face fanned, a shy smile breaking through. "He's nice," she murmured, stroking his neck. "I write poems about animals. Can I come back?" John glanced at Clara, who nodded. "Sure, Mia. Storm could use a friend." Inside, Clara poured coffee, her eyes searching John's. "That was good for Liam," she said, nodding toward the boy, now sketching on the porch, and Mia's opening up. John sank into a chair, the morning's weight settling. "Storm's more than I expected, but I'm no. Henry." Clara set her mug down, her hand covering his. "You saw what they needed. That's enough." Their talk paused as she pulled a letter from her bag. From the auction records, she said, voice low. Storm was trained at Equimed Labs for search and rescue. They used experimental stimulants to boost navigation. It caused his tremors, so they sold him off. John's jaw clenched, anger flaring at Storm's mistreatment. "What kind of stimulants?" Clara shook her head. "No specifics. But it hurt him. John Henry's grass, the signals they're fixing what they broke." He opened the notebook, landing on a page about Amaze rituals. Trust binds horse and guide. Storm's effect on Liam, steadying the boy's chaos. And now, Mia mirrored that trust. John's doubts lingered. Could he lead this path? A knock interrupted. Eleanor Gray stood at the door, her silver-streaked hair tied back, a leather satchel in hand. "I'm from the State College," she said, her handshake firm. "I study Amaze culture. Carter told me about your horse." She approached Storm, her fingers tracing the spiral mark with reverence. "This is no coincidence. Amaze horses were bonded through rituals, grass signals trust. They found sacred places." She pulled a fragile map from her satchel, marked with Amaze symbols. "My grandfather, an Amaze elder trained with Henry Harper. This map points to a site near Oak Ridge. A cave, maybe? Your horse could lead us." John's pulse quickened, the mind's memory vivid. "Why us?" he asked. Eleanor's gaze was steady. "The horse picks its guide. Clara's hand brushed John's, her voice low. "We can't ignore this, John. For Storm, for Oak Ridge." He nodded, but the black car spotted again last night. Near the road loomed in his mind. Eleanor's map promised answers, but also risk. He looked at Storm, grazing calmly, and Mia scribbling nearby. Whatever lay ahead, he'd face it for the horse and the kids. Tomorrow they'd follow the map, one step deeper into the unknown. The forest beyond the Harper farmhouse stood silent under a gray dawn, its pines shrouded in mist, as John Harper led Storm along a narrow trail. The horse's chestnut coat gleamed faintly. His steps sure after weeks of the Amaze grass blend. 50% alfalfa, 30% Timothy, 20% wild mint. The double spiral mark on his shoulder caught the dim light, a beacon tied to Eleanor Gray's ancient map, now tucked in John's jacket beside Henry's notebook. Clara walked beside him, her scarf tight against the chill, while Eleanor followed her satchel slung over her shoulder, eyes scanning the trees with a historian's focus. The promise of a hidden Amaze site drove them forward, but the black car John had glimpsed again last night idling near the road cast a shadow over their purpose. Eleanor's map, marked with Amaze symbols, had pointed to this trail, a forgotten path deep in Oak Ridge's forest. My grandfather swore by these roots. She'd said at the farmhouse, her voice reverent. The horses led to sacred places, caves for rituals, springs for healing. If Storm's one of theirs, he'll know. John nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. The mine. Storm found was real, but this felt riskier. Clara's hand brushed his, her gaze firm. "Trust, Storm," she murmured. John raised his palm, circling. As the notebook instructed Storm Guide, he said, voice low. The horse's ears flicked, and he surged forward, his gait purposeful despite the uneven ground. The trail twisted through dense underbrush roots, snaking across the path. Eleanor pointed to a weathered stone, half buried in moss, etched with a faint spiral. "A marker," she said, tracing it. "We're close." Storm snorted, pulling toward a rocky ridge ahead, its face cloaked in vines. John's pulse quickened. They reached the ridge, and John tethered Storm to a sapling, brushing aside vines to reveal a narrow cave mouth barely wide enough for a person. The air felt heavy, charged with stillness. Clara shone a flashlight inside its beam, catching glints of gold. Not coins, but veins of ore shimmering in the rock. Carvings lined the walls, spirals, and Amaze symbols, their edges worn but vivid. Eleanor's breath caught. "This is a sacred site," she whispered. "The Amaze hid treasures here, gold, knowledge during the colonial wars. Horses like Storm guarded the way." John stepped inside the cave's cool air, brushing his skin. The carvings told a story. Horses leading warriors' spirals, marking paths. One showed a horse saving a child, its spiral mark clear. John's hand went to Storm's mark, a chill running through him. They trusted these horses with everything Eleanor said. And when the tribe was scattered, the knowledge faded. Henry learned from my grandfather. She looked at John. "You're carrying it now?" Clara's flashlight swept the cave landing on an alcove with a clay vessel, its lid carved with a spiral. Eleanor lifted it, revealing dried herbs, wild mint, like Storm's diet. Ritual offerings, she said. This place is alive. John? His mind raced. The mine? Now this cave. Storm was no ordinary horse, but the weight pressed harder. If word of this gold spread, Oak Ridge could change, but at what cost? The black car's shadow loomed its unseen driver, a threat he couldn't name. Outside, Storm stood calm, his eyes locked on the cave as if guarding it. Clara's voice broke the silence. This could help the town, John. But we need to be smart. John nodded, his jaw tight. We keep this quiet, just us and Carter for now. Eleanor folded the map, agreeing. The Amaze hid this for a reason. As they trekked back, Eleanor shared more. Colonists took their land. Their stories, she said. The horses were scattered, rituals lost. Henry kept it safe. John's chest tightened. Henry's silence about the Amaze. A puzzle. Why hadn't his father told him? Doubt crept in. Could he carry this legacy? At the farmhouse, Liam and Mia waited, their faces bright. Did Storm find something cool? Liam asked, sketchpad in hand. John forced a smile. Just an old trail. Mia held out a poem, her voice shy but clearer. It's about Storm. She read softly, her words trembling. He walks through shadows, finds the light. John took the paper, her verse piercing. These kids were counting on him. That evening, headlights cut through the dusk, a sleek sedan, not the black car, but polished. A tall, silver-haired man stepped out, briefcase in hand. John Harper, Dr. Edward Langley, National Equine Assistance Foundation. I heard about your horse. John shook his hand, wary, noting Langley's eyes linger on Storm's spiral mark. Clara stepped forward, guarded. What brings you? Langley's saw was practiced. Your horse came from Equimed Labs, a facility we funded. When I learned you had one, with unique traits, I had to see. We'd like to buy Storm's study. His abilities, name your price. John's gut twisted. The offer tempted vet bills, farm repairs, but Storm's eyes, Liam's sketch, Mia's poem held him. He's not for sale, he said, voice firm. Langley's smile faltered. That mark his instincts. They're rare. Think of your family. Clara's voice was steady. We're fine, Dr. Langley. He handed John a card. I'm in town a few days. Think it over. The sedan purred away, but John's unease grew. Langley knew the mark. How the black car, spotted closer that morning, felt tied to this. Clara's eyes met his. We need Carter. John nodded, locking the barn. Storm's spiral mark glowing in the lantern light. Tomorrow they'd dig deeper, protect what they'd found. One step into the spiral's truth. Twilight draped Oak Ridge in a soft gray veil. As John Harper stood outside the barn watching Storm graze under the fading light, the horse's chestnut coat glowed faintly, his strength growing with each day of the Amaze grass blend. 50% alfalfa, 30% timothy, 20% wild mint. The double spiral mark on his shoulder seemed to shimmer, a silent echo of the gold-veined cave they'd found. Its carvings and secrets burned into John's mind. Henry's notebook and Eleanor's map rested in his jacket. Their weight matched by the dread that had settled since Dr. Langley's visit. The black car, spotted again that morning, near the road, felt like a warning he couldn't ignore. Clara joined him, her scarf loose, eyes scanning the darkening fields. "You're quiet," she said, her voice gentle but probing. "That cave's got you spooked." John nodded, his jaw tight. "It's not just the cave. That car's too close." She frowned, her nurse's instinct kicking in. "We need to tell Carter. The Gold Storm. It's too big to keep quiet." John hesitated, Henry's words echoing. "See what others don't." The Amaze had hidden their treasures for a reason. Sharing too soon could bring trouble. A sharp crack split the night, a sound like splintering wood, followed by Storm's frantic whinny. John bolted upright, grabbing a flashlight. "The barn," he shouted, racing outside. Clara close behind. The air was thick with smoke, an orange glow licking the barn's far wall. Fire! John's heart pounded as he sprinted forward, the heat hitting like a wall. The barn door was ajar. The lock shattered. Someone had been here. "Storm?" he yelled, pulling his shirt over his nose and plunging into the smoke. Inside, flames climbed the rafters, devouring dry wood. Storm reared in his stall, eyes wild, hooves slamming the gate. John fumbled with the latch, coughing. Smoke seared his lungs. "Easy, boy," he choked, swinging the gate open. Storm bolted but turned back, nudging John toward the tack room where the notebook and map lay. In a leather bag, John stumbled through the haze, grabbing the bag as sparks rained down. A beam crashed yards away, blocking the main exit. His vision blurred, oxygen fading, but Storm pressed against him, guiding him toward a narrow gap near the wall. Outside, Clara's screams cut through the chaos. Neighbors arriving, their shouts drowned by the fire's roar. "John's inside," she cried, fighting their hold. Storm burst from the barn, dragging John and the bag onto the gravel, collapsing beside him. Clara rushed forward, hands shaking as she checked his pulse. "He's breathing," she shouted, neighbors dousing flames with hoses as sirens wailed. John coughed, consciousness flickering, his eyes on Storm. The horse's sides heaved, the spiral marks stark against his sweat-soaked coat. "You saved me," John rasped, reaching for Storm's muzzle. Sheriff Carter's patrol car screeched to a halt, the sheriff leaping out, face grim, as he surveyed the blaze. "Arson," he growled, spotting a gas can's glint in the grass. "Someone wanted you out, or Storm gone?" Clara's voice trembled, Langley. "It's got to be him." John struggled to sit, clutching the bag, the notebook, and map safe. Storm's eyes met his fierce, despite exhaustion. Whoever did this had underestimated them. Firefighters arrived, battling the blaze as it consumed the barn's frame. Neighbors passed buckets, their faces set with determination. Oak Ridge wasn't just a town. It was a family, rallying for the Harpers. Carter knelt beside John, voice low. "Found tracks to the forest. Betting that black car's nearby." "We'll find it." John nodded, throat raw. Storm went for the bag first. He knew Carter's eyes widened, glancing at the horse. "Hell of a horse." Clara helped John to his feet, paramedics checking his vitals. Storm stood nearby, trembling but alive, his loyalty. A fire brighter than the one They'd escaped. John's gaze swept the smoldering ruins. The bag a lifeline to the Amaze secrets. "We need Eleanor," he said, voice hoarse, and answers about Langley. Inside the farmhouse, Clara played a voicemail from Eleanor, her voice urgent. John. "Clara, I found something in Equimed's files. Langley's real name is Edward Vance. He clashed with Henry over Amaze horses, wanted to exploit them. I'm heading to Oak Ridge. Stay safe." The message cut off, leaving silence. John's pulse quickened. "Vance," he said. "Henry's rival." Carter nodded. "Explains why he's after Storm. I'll dig into Vance. Got a deputy at the vet's for Storm." Liam appeared at the door, his sketchpad clutched, tight, eyes wide with fear from the fire's glow. "Is Storm okay?" he asked, voice shaking. Clara knelt beside him. "He's a hero. Liam saved John." Liam hesitated, then approached Storm, now tethered nearby, and stroked his muzzle, his trembling easing. "You're brave," he whispered, the horse's calm grounding him. John's throat tightened, Liam's fear mirroring his own, but the boy's trust in Storm bolstered him. Clara's eyes met his fierce. "We'll rebuild. For Storm, for us." John held the bag tighter, the spiral mark on Storm's shoulder, a defiant emblem. Vance's move had failed, but the war wasn't over. Tomorrow they'd hunt. Answers starting with Carter's tracks and Eleanor's silence. For now, John stood with Clara and Liam, the night alive, with the promise of a fight they'd face together. The midday sun cast a stark light over the Harper farmhouse, its rays glinting off the charred scar, where the barn once stood now, cleared for a new stable, rising from donated timber. John Harper stood in the yard, his bandaged hands gripping a mug of coffee, the sting of smoke still raw in his memory. Storm was at Dr. Ellis's stable, recovering from the fire, his chestnut coat and double spiral mark vivid in John's mind. The leather bag with Henry's notebook and Eleanor's map lay locked inside its secrets, a lifeline after Edward Vance's arson. Clara moved nearby, sorting lumber, her dark hair tied back, her resolve a fire matching John's own. Sheriff Carter's patrol car pulled into the driveway, dust swirling as he stepped out, face grim but determined. "Got him," he said, adjusting his hat. "Edward Vance, alias Langley, picked up at a motel. Prints on the gas can match his. He's in custody, talking to cut a deal." John's pulse quickened, relief mixing with suspicion. "What's he saying?" Carter leaned against his car, voice low. "Vance ran Equimed's research, experimenting on horses like Storm, with drugs to boost navigation. Storm was their star, but the drugs caused tremors, and the project tanked. He lost track of Storm until the auction." Clara's eyes narrowed. "So he burned our barn to get Storm back." Carter nodded. "Partly Vance says he's working for a group, maybe criminals chasing Amaze secrets, that cave you found. He thinks it's a map to more gold relics. Storm's the key." John's jaw tightened, the cave's spiral carvings vivid. He knew about the mark, he said, how Carter's gaze darkened. Vance crossed paths with Henry years ago. Tried to buy his Amaze knowledge, got shut down. Henry called him a vulture. The revelation hit John hard. Henry had faced Vance, protected the Amaze legacy, and now John was fighting the same. Clara led them inside, spreading Eleanor's map on the table. If Vance wanted the cave, his backers do too, she said, tracing the spiral. We need. Eleanor, John dialed her number, leaving a message about Vance. Carter pulled a folded paper, a search warrant, hit Vance's motel room. Found notes on Equimed's drugs, maps of Oak Ridge, sketches of that spiral, and a burner phone with calls to an unknown number. His backers are out there. John's mind raced. The black car. An Equimed tag found near the barn. Vance wasn't alone. Eleanor's safe, Carter added, held up at the university digging Equimed files. She's coming with a deputy escort. By afternoon, neighbors arrived. Liam's parents with lumber. Mia's aunt with blankets. Oak Ridge's heart in action. John visited Storm at the vet's stable. The horse's eyes bright, despite bandaged legs. Dr. Ellis gave a nod. He's tough. Lungs clearing, but needs rest. That marks something else. John stroked Storm's muzzle. The spiral mark warm. You're a fighter, he whispered. The horse snorted, as if ready to run. Back at the farmhouse, the new stable's frame took shape. Neighbors hammering nails, their tools clanging in solidarity. Clara handed John a plank, her voice low. This is more than a stable. It's a promise to Storm. Henry, this town. Liam and Mia ran up, faces bright. Liam held a sketch of Storm, in the maze, bold lines capturing his strength. For the stable, he said, voice steady but eyes flickering with fire's memory. I was scared that night, Mr. Harper, but Storm's brave. So I gotta be too. John ruffled his hair, pride swelling. You are, kid. Mia clutched a poem, her braid swinging. It's for Storm, she said, reading softly. He burns bright, even in the dark. Her voice trembled, but held her confidence growing. John pinned the sketch and poem to a post, their faith in Storm, a mirror of the town's. Eleanor arrived, her Jeep crunching gravel satchel, brimming with Amaze records. Vance was a vulture, she said, spreading documents. He tried to exploit Henry's knowledge years ago. My grandfather, an Amaze elder, taught Henry to protect it. Her leather-bound journal detailed the horse's rituals, a sketch of a spiral-marked horse, saving a child, mirroring Storm's fire-born courage. Storm's their lineage. You're his guide, John. His chest ached. Doubt easing under her words. He wasn't Henry, but he was enough. Clara called. Everyone for lunch, sandwiches, and lemonade. Donated by neighbors, Carter joined, his face cautious. Vance's burner phone led to a warehouse empty, but with manifests for artifacts, some marked with spirals. His backers are trafficking Amaze relics. John nodded, the cave's gold part of a larger puzzle. They're still out there, he said. Carter agreed. We're tracking them, towns pitching in lumber tools. Oak Ridge doesn't back down. The stable's walls rose, a testament to community. Liam helped hammer his explorer's dream alive. Mia wrote another poem, her pen steady. Eleanor and Clara planned an Amaze exhibit, a way to honor the tribe. John paused, hammer in hand, watching Storm. At the vet, neighbors, laughing, kids, shining. The fire had tested them. But this felt like proof. He belonged. Eleanor approached, voice low. The map doesn't just mark the cave. My grandfather's records mention a final site, a sacred place. Maybe a lake storm could find it. John's pulse quickened, the spiral's promise stirring. Clara's hand found his. We follow it for storm. John stood by the stable's frame. Liam's sketch and Mia's poem pinned up the lake's call, pulling him forward. Tomorrow they'd plan with Eleanor Brace for Carter's next lead. For now, he held Clara's hand. The town's strength, a shield against the shadows still circling one step closer to the truth. The first light of morning bathed Oak Ridge in a golden haze, softening the scars of the charred barn site where the new Harper Storm Training Center stood, its fresh timbers a testament to the town's unyielding spirit. John Harper walked beside Storm, the horse's chestnut coat, gleaming his steps steady from the Amaze grass blend. 50% alfalfa, 30% Timothy, 20% wild mint. The double spiral mark on his shoulder caught the dawn, a symbol of the journey from a dusty auction to the sacred mirror of stars. Clara stood nearby, her scarf fluttering, adjusting a sign above the stable door. Harper Storm Training Center. Henry's notebook and Eleanor's map rested in a locked box inside their secrets, now a shared legacy. The lake ritual had shifted, John releasing the doubt that had haunted him since the war. Storm's courage in the fire. Clara's resolve and Oak Ridge's heart showed he was enough. Not Henry, but a guide in his own right. The Amaze story revived. Through the mirror of stars, pulsed in him a purpose, extending to the kids, the town, and the tribe's descendants. Sheriff Carter's hunt for Vance's backers, the black car's elusive driver, artifact traffickers, kept John vigilant. But today marked a victory, a beacon against the shadows. Liam and Mia raced across the yard, laughter breaking the quiet. Liam clutched a sketch of Storm at the lake, bold lines capturing his strength. For the center he called pinning it, beside his maze drawing. I was scared after the fire, but Storm's my hero. His eyes shone free of sensory chaos. Mia held a poem, her smile bright. It's new, she said, reading with a steady voice. He leads through night to stars so bright. Her confidence born of Storm's calm moved John. He taped the poem beside the sign, the kids' faith mirroring the town's. These belong here, he said, throat tight. Eleanor Gray arrived, her jeep, crunching gravel satchel, brimming with plans. The tribe's elders are ready, she said, her silver-streaked hair glinting. They'll teach rituals, share stories. Storm's the heart. She gestured to the stable, where neighbors gathered. Liam's parents, Mia's aunt, Dara Ellis, faces warm with purpose. Clara joined her voice, clear. This center's for everyone, kids. Amaze, Oak Ridge. It's what Henry wanted. Eleanor unrolled her map, its symbols gleaming. We're building a fund to preserve Amaze culture with Storm as its symbol. Carter pulled up his patrol car. A familiar sight. Got a break, he said, stepping out. Raided a warehouse. Linked to Vance's backers, found smuggler plans, spiral-marked artifacts, and a lead on the black car's driver. They're planning a move, but we're close. John nodded, gratitude mixed with caution. The fight wasn't over, but the center's strength felt like armor. Keep Storm safe, Carter added, glancing at the horse. He's more than you know. John's gaze settled on Storm grazing calmly, the spiral mark of vow. The morning unfolded with celebration. Neighbors sharing coffee, kids running through the stable, Eleanor sketching Amaze classes. Liam helped lead Storm to the pen, his explorer's dream, alive. We'll find more places, right? John smiled. One day, kid. You're already an explorer. Mia wrote another poem, her pen steady. Clara caught John's eye, her smile soft. We built this. He took it in the stable. The kids. Storm the town. He'd come to the auction, broken, haunted by loss. But Storm had led him through fire to this moment. The mirror of stars sealed it, not with gold, but connection to Henry Clara, Oakridge, the Amaze. Eleanor approached, eyes bright. The lake was just the start. The elders want to train others, horses, people to carry the Amaze ways. John's pulse quickened, envisioning the center. Growing kids like Liam and Mia learning the tribe's stories alive. Clara's hand slipped into his. This is Henry's dream, she said, and ours. John squeezed her hand. The weight of his past lighter. The black car's shadow lingered, but he felt ready, bolstered by a legacy he carried. As the sun climbed, John stood with Clara by the stable. The sign, a promise kept. Henry's proud, she said, so am I. The crowd gathered, their chatter warm. John raised his voice. This is our home, our fight, our legacy. Thank you. Cheers rose, Liam's whoop loudest. Mia's poem echoing Carter's lead. A name, tied to the black car, hinted at a coming clash. But John smiled, the mirror of stars, bright in his mind. The center would grow, training horses, teaching kids, honoring the Amaze. He looked to Storm, the horse's amber eyes, meeting his, a bond forged in trust, guiding them forward, one spiral at a time.